This is a journal about our wonderful, memorable trip to New Zealand. The reason why we're going there is to see our friends and to find out about their culture.
We left at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to Heathrow Airport, a trip of 91 miles.
London Heathrow is a huge international airport, flying people to all corners of the world.
The first flying part of our journey was to San Francisco. This was 5,360 miles.
We waited in San Francisco for 7 hours before our next leg, which was on the Air New Zealand 747 jumbo jet. You can just make it out behind us here.
This part of the journey was from San Francisco to New Zealand. This was the furthest part of the trip, being 6,509 miles. New Zealand is made up of 2 main islands. This journal will cover a lot more about each part. This is the North Island. We stayed here for the first week. This is Auckland, the largest city of New Zealand. This is the route that we took to get to the family we were staying with, the Skidmores.
This is the Skidmore's house, the place we used as our base for most of the visit. The first day was spent relaxing. Strangely enough, although we took off at 10 Christmas Eve morning, and we only travelled for 28 hours, we landed on Boxing Day, missing Christmas out entirely. The second day, 27th of December, we took a trip around Auckland and went to a suburb called Devonport. Near Devonport was the North Head, part of a chain of forts defending the Hauraki Gulf. The forts were built in 1885, when New Zealand thought they may have been invaded by Russia. The guns were also readied in the First and Second World Wars, but they have thankfully never been used in anger.
On day 3 of our trip, 28th of December, we went to a place called Piha. This is a strange beach because the sand is black, well, really grey. This is because the sand came from a volcano. Although it doesn't look very hot, it was actually scorching on the beach. We spent an hour boogie boarding and having fun on the beach before we set off
into the rainforest. This was only a 2-minute drive from the beach. When we got there, we took a walk for 25 minutes and ended up coming to this waterfall. We felt the water and it was really cold. Even though it was cold, Dad and Jeff decided to go for a splash. When Dad got out, he said it was really cold, really noisy, and it really hurt his head. Yep, he'd swum right underneath the waterfall. He enjoyed it all the same. On the 29th of December, we all drove up to a campsite in the northwestern part of the North Island. It is near a place called Dargaville, and it was called the Kari Coast Campsite. We stayed there till New Year's Day. This river was great fun. You could get a tractor in the tubes that you would sit in and bounce your way down some rapids. Rihanna really hurt her foot bouncing off rocks like you can see in the picture.
By far the best fun was the pool that was formed in the river. There was a huge rock you could jump off. Both Rihanna and Phoebe did it, but Phoebe did get the award for the biggest splash.
1, 2, 3, go!
Another thing we did while we were at the campsite was visit the Kaiwi Lakes, which were nearby. Both Rihanna and Phoebe had a go at sea biscuiting, which is being pulled around the lake in a large rubber ring. Mum and Dad both tried to water ski too.
On New Year's Eve, we went to see a karri tree called the Tanemahuka. This is a huge tree. It would take 17 people to join hands all the way round it. The man in the green shirt at the bottom of the tree is Jeff. He is 6'8" tall.
According to Maori mythology, Tane is the son of Ranganui and the father of the sky, and Papatananuku, the Earth Mother. Tane was the child that tore his parents' parental embrace, and once done, set about clothing his mother in the forest we have today. All living creatures of the forest are regarded as Tane's children.
We returned to the campsite and enjoyed welcoming the new year in, 13 hours before you did. On New Year's Day we drove back to Auckland via the east coast. The beaches along this route were fantastic. We did have to stop and enjoy the beach, of course.
We also stopped at Goat Island, where we went snorkelling with loads of fish, including some huge red snappers. This is a photo from the internet of some red snappers. The photo was taken at Goat Island.
On the 2nd of January, we spent the day preparing for our trip to the South Island, which started really early on the 3rd.
We initially flew to the capital of New Zealand, which is Wellington. This was a short flight of 296 miles. At the airport, we got off the plane, went into a lounge for 10 minutes, and then got onto the same plane again to carry on to
Christchurch in the South Island, a further 191 miles. Here we hired a car and began the adventure of the South Islands.
We drove down the east coast of the South Island to a place called Oamaru. This was an old Victorian coastal town. The shops were very close to the water's edge, and we discovered that the penguins actually lived beneath the shops. Near Oamaru there is this place where we went to see the Meraki boulders. These were really weird, as they were all the shape of a perfect sphere. They were really big. Apparently, they were formed under the sea and took 4 to 5.5 million years to grow.
After the boulders, we drove along a really windy gravel track to get to a Victoria lighthouse. Near the lighthouse, we saw seals and yellow-eyed penguins. After seeing these, we went on to our stop for the night in a town called Dunedin. On the 4th, we drove to a place called Te Anau. The drive took a long time, but we got there in the end. Te Anau is a beautiful town that has grown on the banks of Lake Te Anau.
There is a statue there of a man called Quentin McKinnon, who, with Ernest Mitchell, were the first men to travel overland from Te Anau to Milford Sound in 1888. The path is now a world-famous walk called the Milford Track. On the 5th we did a lot of travelling. We started at Te Anau, drove for 2 hours around some winding roads to Milford Sound.
As we drove in, the mist came in. It was absolutely beautiful going along there. On the way, we had stopped at a mouth of a tunnel called the Homer Tunnel. While we were sat waiting, there were a load of brown parrots called keas that came down and started entertaining us. These are really friendly parrots that made us laugh, but they are known for pulling all the rubber bits off the car.
The reason we were stopped at the tunnel is that the cars only go in one direction at a time, and the traffic lights only change every 15 minutes. Homer Tunnel was started in 1935. Digging it was a very slow job, and the tunnel wasn't completed until 1953. Even then it wasn't open until 1954.
Milford Sound was beautiful. It was really peaceful and a bit spooky.